Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to begin with a poster it's a new poster. I bring a lot of posters to this committee. And this one's actually really interesting, and I'd like everybody to maybe comment on this. This goes to the whole issue of litigation as it relates to permitting and the challenges it brings to bringing energy projects online, and I mean all energy projects, including renewable energy projects. But the point of the poster is it's a little complicated, but the striped portion is miles of pipeline, gas pipeline, that has been canceled or delayed due to litigation or courts just canceling or upholding pipelines. So it's hard to see, but that's a problem in and of itself. But if you look at the green line, that's the cost of natural gas in America. So there is a really strong correlation between litigation, canceled pipelines. It's actually 7 billion cubic feet per day of natural gas pipelines taken offline because of litigation. So the result is huge spikes in the costs of natural gas. And it's not just natural gas, it's an issue with renewables too. There are 15 open cases right now, again, even canceling wind and solar projects that are happening across the country right now as well. So I think this is an issue for everybody. And Mr. Chairman, I'm very appreciative that you're holding this hearing. It's really important. But I'll begin with you, Mr. Durman, and Mr. Timmons. You talked about the high cost of energy for manufacturing. This is just a high cost of energy for Americans. I mean, look at those numbers. And that is almost certainly driven by litigation that, in my view, is out of control, not restricted. And but for Ms. Goldfuss and others, it's also a problem as it relates to renewables. You may have seen John Kerry. I don't cite John Kerry often, but when he was out at the Swiss gathering, Davos, yeah, he talked about 10 years to site and permit renewable projects like wind farms, and I know Senator Kelly's talked about that a lot for solar in Arizona. So can I get the first, Mr. Durbin, Mr. Timmons, just in general on litigation reform that we need, what a problem this is, and then maybe Ms. Goldfuss, if you can talk about the litigation issues as it relates to renewable projects as well, which it's also a big problem there.
Thank you for the question, Senator Sullivan. Listen, the litigation that has driven the cancellation of these natural gas pipelines, it's harmful in many ways. Not only is it, is it potentially increasing costs for for manufacturing and consumers themselves, but when you think about in addition to natural gas being a critical part of our clean energy economy, it's also about reliability and affordability, for consumers and users of natural gas. So for us not to be able to transport gas out of one of the most prolific natural gas fields in the world, in the Marcellus, to areas like New England that are that have to import natural gas.
And until recently, they were importing it from Russia.
Some from Russia, but
yeah,
again,
really
others
good
as well.
policy there. I have no idea. That's not just hurting the environment, but it's empowering our adversaries.
But again, I think it's a prize that we have here in the U.S. to be able to produce this domestic natural gas. That it hits all, again, it's our energy security, it's our environmental performance, and it's our economic strength.
Mr. Timmons, and do you have specific recommendations for this committee on what we could do to? I mean, that's a disaster by any measure. Look at that spike in prices. We're just hurting ourselves.
So, a couple of things. We clearly need to have a time limit on the process, which would include some judicial reforms or legal reforms. But I'd also like to talk.
So by the way, just real quick on time limit. and I want to make sure I get to Ms. Goldfrost too. Maybe we can submit these for the record. But time limit is both the agency's decision-making timeline and the time limit once you get in litigation
Right.
that the court has to decide.
Has
So
to decide.
two elements of time limit.
Yeah. And I'd also like to just pick up on what Mr. Durbin talked about in terms of our economic security here at home, the cost of energy, not only for certainly manufacturers, but for all consumers. But I'd also like to point out that the world is fracturing right now. And we see very clearly in Ukraine why it's important to make sure that we can not only develop our own domestic resources, but be in a position to export those resources, like liquefied natural gas, to our allies so that they're not dependent or crushed by our adversaries like Russia.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to just ask Ms. Goldfuss if you want to just talk about that briefly on the renewable side, or if you want to talk about natural gas as well, but the litigation delays that are hurting all American energy projects.
I'll be really quick. I think this is what we've been discussing this whole time. If we have early engagement, we've seen examples of where developers, conservation organizations, and community groups have come together on a permit and have been able to make the process go faster because they had that agreement up front. So I think we would reduce a lot of challenges on the back end if there were community agreements and engagement that happened on the front end so everybody understood the benefits.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Kelly, welcome.
Thank you, Mr.
Thanks for
Chairman. And thank you for all our witnesses for being here today.